Hello guys, welcome to episode 2, Order of Operations. Let's consider, before we get started, all the steps it takes to get ready for work, okay? You have to wake up, you have to use the bathroom, and then you go take a shower. You get out, you comb your hair, you drive to work. These are just some of the steps. There could be more steps than this, right? And so I think we would all agree that the order in which we complete these steps matters, right? You couldn't comb your hair first and then wake up and then drive to work and then take a shower and then use the bathroom. That just wouldn't make sense. And so the order in which we do things matters. It's the same thing with math. So let's take a look at this problem here. I've got 3 plus 4 times 2 minus 6. Let's try solving this two different ways. The first way, I'm just going to do the math from left to right, all the way through, okay? And so I have 3 plus 4 is 7, times 2 minus 6, and then 7 times 2 is 14 minus 6, and 14 minus 6 is 8. Okay, I'm going to write that down right here so we can remember it later. Now, this time, I'm going to solve this problem a little differently. Instead of going from left to right, I'm going to do this multiplication first, okay? And so I have 3 plus 4 times 2 is 8 minus 6. And now I'm going to do everything else from left to right. So I have 8 plus 3 is 11 minus 6. 11 minus 6 is 5. And 5 is different than 8. And so I think we could see that the order in which we do this math really does matter. Okay guys, before I get into the order of operations, there's a couple rules I want to talk about, and that's with multiplying and dividing and positive and negative signs. Okay? And so if I have a positive number and I multiply that or divide it by another positive number, I'm always going to get a positive result. If I have a positive number and I multiply or divide that by a negative number, I'm always going to have a negative result. And if I have a negative number and I multiply or divide that by another negative number, that is going to give me a positive result. Okay, so for example, I have 3 times 2, that equals 6. All right, if I were to have negative 3 times 2, that's going to give me negative 6. Likewise, I could write this 3 times negative 2, and that's still going to be negative 6. And finally, I could say negative 3 times negative 2, and that's going to give me 6. Now, another rule I want to mention is sometimes when you're subtracting negative numbers, so for example, let's say I have 4 minus negative 2. When I have two negatives like this, it basically makes a positive, okay? And so I have 4 plus 2 equals 6. So let me try to give you an example of how this works conceptually. And so in math, we try to think of negatives as debts, all right? So for example, let's say I made $60,000 in a year. I had some student loan debt, and I had to repay $5,000 of student loan debt that year. And so I think you could see that at the end of the year, what I netted was $55,000, right? Okay, now let's look at another scenario. I made $60,000 in a year, and I still had that $5,000 worth of student loan debt, okay? But I worked for an employer who had a student loan forgiveness program, and they paid it off for me. And so I could subtract that debt. And when I have two negatives, I turn that into a positive. And so now what I netted in the year was $60,000 plus $5,000, $65,000. Even though I didn't get this $5,000 in my bank account, it went to forgiving my loan. Okay, it's still as if I earned $5,000 because I got rid of that debt. One more concept I want to talk to you about, and this is something that's helped me out a lot in math. So most people can do addition and multiplication pretty easy. However, subtraction and division mentally are a little bit harder for most people. And so in math, whenever you can, you want to try to redefine your subtraction in terms of addition. And you also want to redefine your division in terms of multiplication. And that'll make the math easier for you to do. And so let me show you an example of what I mean by this. Take a look at this problem here. I've got a lot going on, and it looks a little confusing at first. And so I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to redefine all my subtraction in terms of addition. Okay, and so here I have 4 minus 4. I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to say I have 4 plus negative 4, because really what I'm doing is adding a debt. Okay, and then plus 6 plus negative 2. Okay, and then right here I have 2 negatives, so that makes a positive. So positive 7 plus 1. Now if I look at the problem as I rewrote it here, it's actually a little easier to understand now. And I could further simplify this by putting all my positives on one side and all my negatives on the other, right? And so I can rewrite this as 4 plus 6 plus 7 plus 1 plus negative 4 plus negative 2. And so now this is a little easier for me to solve mentally, right? I have 6 and 4, which is 10. Okay, plus 7, that makes 17, plus 1 is 18. Okay, and so on this side here, I have 18 plus negative 4 plus negative 2. All right, so let's add my negatives up together. So I have negative 4 plus negative 2, which makes negative 6. So I have 18 minus negative, 18 plus negative 6, and that equals 12. Next, I'm going to show you how to redefine division in terms of multiplication. Now, we haven't talked about fractions yet, but I'm sure you recall from school that when you're dividing fractions, for example, let's say I have 1/2, and let's say I want to divide that by 1/4. Okay? It's the same thing as saying 1/2 times 4. Okay, basically what I do is I take this number here and I take the reciprocal of it. I flip it around, I put 4 over 1. And then instead of doing the division, now I could do multiplication. And so it's a lot easier for me to do now, right? So I say 1 times 4 is 4 over 2, which equals 2. So let's take a look at this problem here. I have 4 times 4 divided by 2. Now, rather than saying divided by 2, what I'm going to say is times 1 over 2 times 1/2, right? Times 3 divided by 4, which I'm going to say times 1 over 4. Okay, now, all these numbers are essentially fractions, right? They're all 4 over 1, 3 over 1. Okay, and so now all I have to do is multiply everything across the top and then multiply everything across the bottom, and I'll get a fraction, and then I divide that. So I have 4 and 4 is 16 times 3 equals 48 on top. And then on the bottom I have 2 times 4, which is 8. 48 divided by 8 is 6. All right, let's dive into the order of operations. So what the order of operations tells us is that if you have parentheses, you're going to do those first. Anything within parentheses, you do first. Next, you're going to do exponents and radicals from left to right. After that, you're going to do multiplication and division from left to right, and we'll talk more about that in a second. So you do multiplication and division from left to right. Okay, finally, you're going to do your addition and your subtraction from left to right, and that is the order of operations. Okay, so let's look at some examples, and I'm going to start off pretty simple, and we're going to get harder as we go. And so in this first example, I have 2 plus 4 times 2. And so what I want to do with the order of operations is I want to start with the parentheses. I have no parentheses. And so now I'm going to go to my exponents. I don't have any exponents. So now I'm going to do my multiplication and division from left to right. Okay, you can see here I do have multiplication being done right here, 4 times 2. And so that's going to be my first step. Okay, and so 4 times 2 is 8, and what I'm left with is 2 plus 8. Alright, so now I have no more multiplication and division. And so next I'm going to do my addition and my subtraction. 8 plus 2 is 10. Okay, for this next example, same thing. Looking for parentheses, nope, no exponents. So now I do multiplication and division from left to right. Again, I only have one multiplication problem. Okay, and so 5 times 3 is 15. And I bring everything else down. So 4 plus 2 minus 2 plus 15 minus 1. Alright, and so now I have no more multiplication and division, but I do have addition and subtraction. And I do that from left to right. So now what do I mean by left and right? Okay, what I mean is you just start at this part of the problem and solve it working your way that way. Okay, some people get confused when they see addition and subtraction, and they think it means you do the addition first and then you go back and do the subtraction. No, that's not how it works. You have to do the addition and subtraction from left to right. So working from left to right, I have 4 plus 2 is 6, minus 2 is 4, plus 15 is 19, minus 1 is 18. Next problem. First thing I do is I look for parentheses. Now in this problem I have parentheses, they're right here. Now you'll notice inside the parentheses I'm doing addition. Normally we would do our multiplication before addition. However, because the order of operation tells us to do parentheses first, we're going to do everything within these parentheses first. Okay, and within a parentheses, the order of operation applies. Okay, in this case, we're just doing addition, but if there were other operations being done, the order of operations would apply within the parentheses. The first thing we're going to do is add 3 to 2, and we get 5, and so we end up with 3 times 5 plus 2 squared. Okay, so now I got rid of my parentheses. Next on my list is exponents, and I do have one exponent right here, and so I'm going to do that next. And so 2 squared is 4, so I end up with 3 times 5 plus 4. Next, I'm going to do my multiplication and division from left to right. And so I have 3 times 5 is 15 plus 4. And finally, I have addition and subtraction. 15 plus 4 is 19. Next example, I look for parentheses, and I have them here. And so whatever lies within these parentheses, I'm going to do first. Okay, and within the parentheses, the order of operation applies. So I can see the first thing I have is a root. And so I'm going to tackle this guy here first. Okay, and so the cubed root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 9 is 27. Okay, and so now what I'm left with is 5 minus 3 in this bracket divided by 2. I still have to get rid of these parentheses. Okay, they're still there, so I still have to contend with them. And so I do 5 minus 3, which is 2, and I have divided by 2. This is my last operation left. 2 divided by 2 is 1. This next example is pretty simple, but I'm just using it to illustrate a point that I'm going to make in a minute. Okay, and so going down the list, I don't have any parentheses, I don't have any exponents, and so I do my multiplication and division from left to right, and so I have division being done here, and I have multiplication being done here, and so I'm going to do these operations first. So 21 divided by 7 is 3 plus 15 minus 1, and next I do my addition and my subtraction from left to right. Okay, so 15 plus 3 is 18, minus 1 is 17. The point I wanted to make has to do with the calculator and how you input things into it. And so let's take a look. I'm going to input this problem into the calculator. And the first way I'm going to do it is I'm going to say 21 divided by 7 and hit enter, and I get a result. Then I'm going to say plus 5 and hit enter, and then I get a result. Times 3, enter, I get 24, and then subtract 1, enter, and I get 23. We know 23 is the wrong answer, right? Because we just worked this problem. It's 17. And so why did we get the wrong answer? We got the wrong answer because we didn't adhere to the order of operations when we inputted the problem into our calculator. And so let me show you another way to do this. Let's just input the problem as it's written. 21 divided by 7, and I'm not going to push enter in between each step. Plus 5 times 3 minus 1. Push enter, and I get the right answer. When using your calculator, it's important to understand how it works and how it's going to compute the numbers, because they don't always all do the same thing. This one's smart enough to understand the order of operations, but you have to input the problem exactly as you see it on your paper in order to get the right answer. This next problem looks a little more complicated, but we're going to break it down into its parts and see that it's really not that bad. Okay, so the first thing I do is look for parentheses, and I have them here. And I can see that within the parentheses I have nested parentheses. And so within the parentheses the order of operation applies, so I'm going to do these parentheses first before I do any other operations. I do this and that first. Okay, and so 12 minus 5 is 7. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And so what I'm left with is 7 plus 5 squared plus 7 squared. Okay, now within the parentheses, I'm going to do exponents next. So I'm going to solve this term right here. Alright, so 5 squared is 25, and what I'm left with is 7 plus 25 plus 7 squared. Okay, I still have these parentheses to contend with, so I'm going to do the math inside of those first. And I have 7 plus 25, which is 32 plus 7 squared. Continuing on with the order of operations, I have exponents. I have an exponent here. 7 times 7 is 49. And so what I'm left with is 32 plus 49. And 32 and 49 make 81. Okay, and so let's try to input this into our calculator. Now, I'm just going to go down the line here from left to right, and I'm going to put the symbols like I see them. Okay, and so I have a parenthesis here, one here, and I say 12 minus 5, close parentheses, plus 15 divide, oops, okay, I need to go back, so I'm going to push the delete button. 15 divided by 3, and that's squared, so I could, right now I'm just going to use my x squared button, and then I'm going to close that bracket, and then plus 7 squared. Okay, I'm going to push enter, and hopefully I get 81. Hail Mary. Boom, 81. Okay guys, this is the last example I have for this video. If you want more practice after this, go to the link below, and if you go to our website, you could download a practice worksheet. Do the practice worksheet, it comes with the answers, and I'm going to post a follow-on video showing you how I solved those problems in the practice worksheet. So in this problem, we've seen a couple things that we haven't seen before. The main thing is these brackets, okay? You treat brackets just like you would treat parentheses. There's really no difference. Sometimes they use brackets as the outermost level, okay? And then within those brackets, you might find these like little nested, like squiggly lines. And within those, you would have like parentheses. These could be nested within each other, and it could be confusing. And basically, you just kind of want to dig into them and dissect them and try to find the lowest level. For example, we have these brackets here, and you could see within the bracket, we have like another nested bracket right here. And then we have other parentheses, but there's no operations being done within those. Okay, they're just being used basically to separate the negative symbol from other operations so that you don't get confused. So the first thing I'm going to tackle here is this bracket, and within that bracket, these parentheses. So 18 divided by 9 is 2, and I have two negatives, that makes a positive, and so I have positive 2. Now I'm going to simplify it, so I'm going to drop the rest of this down. So I have negative 11 plus 2 times negative 3 to the third minus negative 2. So I need to finish doing everything within this bracket so I can get rid of it. And so now I have negative 11 plus 2, which makes negative 9. And so I have negative 9 times negative 3 to the third minus negative 2. Okay, so now I've done all my parentheses. And next, I'm looking for exponents. I have one exponent here. So negative 3 to the third is the same thing as saying negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, right? And so I have a negative and negative here, so that's going to make a positive. Then I'm going to multiply that by this negative, and it's going to turn it back into a negative. And so whatever answer I get, I know it's going to be negative. And so 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. And so here I have negative 27. And when I drop the rest of this down, I have negative 9 times negative 27. And here I have a negative and negative, so I know that makes a positive. So I'm just going to say plus 2 here. Okay, so now I've done all my exponents. Next I have multiplication and division from left to right. And I only have one operation being done here, which is negative 9 times negative 27. And so I'm going to do that next. Negative 9 times 27 is 243 plus 2. All right, and so my final answer is 245. Let's put this problem into our calculator. Okay, remember, you just want to put it in exactly how you see it. And so I don't have these bracket symbols on this calculator. I don't think there's any brackets on it anyway, but you could just go ahead and use parentheses for everything. Okay, as long as you input it the right way, it's going to work. And so I'm going to put a parenthesis, and then I'm going to put negative 11, parenthesis, plus, parenthesis, negative, clear that, delete, negative 18, close the parenthesis, divided by, parenthesis, negative 9, parenthesis, times negative 3, and this is to the third, minus negative 2. Okay, I'm going to push enter. Syntax error. Son of a p***. So why did I get this syntax error? I actually did this on purpose. Okay, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but I didn't put a negative here. What I did is I pushed the minus symbol. Okay, you want to use the negative symbol here. So I'm going to fix that and push enter, and I get the right answer, 245. There's a little acronym people use to help remember the order of operations, and I'm just going to mention this in case there's somebody out there that's never heard this. It's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's all I got for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching. And again, please click on the link below, go to the website, download the homework, take some time, do it. And then if you need to, watch the follow-on video, and I'll show you how I got the answers. Goodbye.